Looks good.
This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Heart Mojo with Melinda Smith. And Melinda, looks like you're in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'd love to be on the water. My goal in life is to be able to do my podcast sitting by the ocean.
But you're really not there today, right?
No, I'm not. I just picked a cool background. I used to have this background and the Zoom gods took it away. And for whatever reason, the Zoom gods brought it back. So I'm happy.
Well, thank God for the Zoom gods, because as your guest and I were just discussing, on Monday, the Zoom gods had it in for me. We couldn't record, but we are set to go today.
Yes, we are.
You have somebody very interesting with us. So give us a little bit of background.
Well, so today we're going to talk about ZONTA International and our local clubs. I've been in this club for 15 years. It's called ZONTA Club of Cleveland. Kimm is in Columbus, right?
Right.
And so Kimm and I have known each other for a long time. And I don't know why I've never talked about ZONTA, because ZONTA hits challenges for women and girls all over the world. And so our show is about getting through life's challenges, and ZONTA does that. And they've been doing it for over 100 years. So I'd like to introduce Kimm Hrdlicka-Tigges. How'd I do?
Excellent. Excellent.
She's our district lieutenant governor. She also does membership in the district. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about ZONTA, and then we're going to also talk about why we chose to be involved with this group. Go ahead, Kimm, you're on. Thank you for being on, by the way.
Oh, thank you for asking me. I really appreciate both of you. Because yes, as Melinda knows, I love talking ZONTA. So when you asked, I was thrilled. So in a brief description, ZONTA is a global community that stands up for the rights of women. And we do it by advocating for equality, for education for women and girls, and to stop gender-based violence. And when we talk about that, that thing includes things such as human trafficking, which Zontians around the world have been active with for decades. We are now currently strongly working to end child marriage. And if anyone in the U.S. is thinking that this happens in other countries, no, it happens in the United States every single day. And I have statistics in my own state of Ohio that were appalling. But basically, we will not rest until women's rights are considered human rights.
Right. A lot of people forget, or they don't know, that Ohio, from trafficking, Ohio is one of the #1 trafficking states in our country. Because of our highway system, because it's out in the middle of the country, we're close to the border to get into Canada. It is sickening because you just don't think about it.
And we have the lakeways and stuff. I've been honored for over a decade, and because of ZONTA, we threw a panel about human trafficking back in the fall of '09. So a long time ago, when we had to define, everyone thought it was just kidnapping and taking someone away. We had to define it. And because of that, our club was called, and they wanted a representative from our club to sit on the brand new Attorney General of Ohio's task force against human trafficking. And I have been on this task force now commission since January of 2010.
Wow.
So 13
I remember
years.
That, actually. I went to that meeting.
Thank you. Yeah.
So tell us how ZONTA started. I mean, I know, but I'd like for you to tell our listeners.
Exactly. A few smart women back in 1919 in Buffalo, New York, saw, and especially again, that's almost it was in November, so it was almost 104 years ago, saw that women didn't have a voice, and that was obvious. We didn't have a vote. We were considered property in a lot of respects. And so we wanted to change that. I mean, ZONTA has seen such a growth of women in 104 years. So they started it in New York, and it wasn't international then, but quickly it did. It grew up in other states and then up into Canada and then went across the pond. I can't remember which country first in Europe, but anyways, it became then international and changed its name. So its history is long.
They started with women who were in non-traditional jobs, correct?
Yeah, correct. But they also were, yes, they were professional women too, who saw that the women needed women of all facets, whether in, as a scrub maid or as a high society woman. Every woman needed a voice.
But they were in the position financially and in their jobs to help facilitate this move forward for all women.
Exactly, they were.
So who was our most famous Zonchan?
You want to tell everybody?
No, you get to. That's why you're my guest. I'm just thinking about the question.
Yeah, I would say our most famous is Amelia Earhart. And anyone who knows Amelia Earhart, even just a little bit, knows that she was very non-traditional. She wore pants, which people hated. And of course, she was a flying ace. So she became a Zonchan she joined ZONTA because it again stood up for women and breaking those gender-based roles. So when she was lost, I believe it was 1937. In 1938, ZONTA International, then we have an Amelia Earhart Fellowship, which goes to just women, $10,000 fellowship to could be almost 30 women a year who are in the aerospace or engineering or aerospace sciences in a doctoral program. So we honor her by that. And we honor her every January just to remember that, yes, she was there like all of us fighting for women's rights.
She had a big effect on ZONTA. I mean, our yellow rose was her favorite flower, correct?
I believe
so. You have
yes.
Yellow roses in the background.
Yep, of course.
Oh, that was perfect. Your hand went right there. That was perfect.
I could be Vanna White now.
So I have a quick question for the two of you. I mean, Melinda, since I've met you, you've talked about ZONTA as if I really knew what it was about, and I really didn't. And it seems like there's probably a lot of women out there that have no idea there's this organization that cares about us. So can you tell me a little bit, Kimm, like, how is it you get the message out so that we all know about ZONTA?
Before we go there, we want to talk about what the word ZONTA means.
That's a good idea too.
So go ahead, Kimm.
Okay. It's a Lakota Indian word. Trustworthy, loyal, hardworking. Yes. And so the women in Buffalo decided to go to indigenous women, indigenous cultures here from America. I don't think they realized it was going to go international rather quickly, but yes, and that's why ZONTA, that's what it stands for. And it is a different word. I usually have to say it a few times. They're like, what? So
I know, but you know what? They were way ahead of the game with honoring our indigenous people in the United States.
Yes. And those are things Zonchans actually are working on right now. Indigenous women's issues in North America, Central, which are huge.
And people don't even think about it. It's almost non-existent in conversation. When women disappear from that culture, they're not looked for.
Right, exactly. And you've got the difference between the reservation law and the U.S. law and the boundaries and all that. We are always kind of ahead of the curve. Like with human trafficking, with indigenous women, we tend to be ahead of the curve because a lot of times we'll have to explain to people why we're looking at this.
Right.
So, or ending child marriage right now. People had no clue how much was going on in the United States even.
And it's funny, with all the media that we have now, with the internet and that, you would think it would be a topic that's discussed, but it's not. And like you said, people are still shocked talking about these issues. So how do we get this word out to people? What do we do in our organization to get the word out, both in the U.S. and in other countries?
First off, things like this. Doing a podcast that can go out to thousands is fantastic. We have embraced social media like every organization has. I think organizations sometimes tend to be a little slower, but we've embraced social media. We have it before. It was mostly done through our members. Our members would talk to people or invite people and to join in our service projects and things like that. But now we're getting it out more and more. We get more news coverage than we used to, especially locally. Our local clubs are the ones that tend, when they do a service project or an advocacy project, they're the ones that tend to get, ZONTA International doesn't, but that local club a lot of times will get some coverage. So we are boots on the ground, working hard in our communities and for the world. We don't shout it from the rooftops. We probably should. So, but
well,
we
we're doing
don't.
that today.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
Yep,
we're gonna get it
exactly.
out.
So getting the word out is the best way.
Well, we have a very prestigious position, right, in the UN. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, we do. So the UN came out of from World War II, started in 1945. And first, you can tell I was the district UN chair, and I have been to the UN a few times, so I love it. But the UN, and we were there right at the beginning. It came out of the League of Nations from World War I, which was to make countries communicate with each other before there's a war. Because after, of course, World War I was the war to end all wars. Obviously,
Which
it was
didn't.
not. It didn't, right? So it wasn't working. So FDR then changed kind of some of it and made it stronger in these countries than after the decimation of World War II. ZONTA was right there from the beginning. There are numerous NGOs, and I'll be honest, I didn't know what the acronym NGO was until ZONTA taught me, but it's non-governmental organization. And I always want to say that because, I mean, I didn't know, but it means a lot of people don't know. So,
right.
Yeah, so there's thousands of NGOs associated with the UN, but there are only, I think it's 137 that are of general consultative status. That is the highest ranking you can have partnering an NGO with the United Nations. And all of our worldwide service projects go hand in hand with different organizations within the United Nations. We don't just pick these things out. The UN brings us women's issues, and then we will take on 3, maybe 4 in a biennium, a 2-year period. And we will fight for that. And a lot of times these will continue on, but we do it hand in hand with the United Nations.
So how many countries are we in right now?
62, going to be 63. We have over 1,100 clubs, but I believe there's over 30 in formation right now around the world.
Wow. Wow.
So we are growing.
So what's an example of some of the projects that we do worldwide?
The big ones, educating girls is very important in our organization, because when you educate a young girl, or not just a young girl, it helps build them up and helps their community. So some of the projects are educating girls in Madagascar, ending child marriage, which again helps with keeping girls in school. What else? Oh, we just started engaging girls in climate crisis, because the climate crisis is affecting women a lot more than anyone, because if there's a drought or if there's flooding, which by the way occurs in our state, that and tornadoes are our #1 climate issues in Ohio, they get displaced. And they're usually, the caretakers. I think I said to Melinda one time, a wise woman once told me, you help a man, and that's great, but you help a woman and you help a village, because we are the caretakers of each other.
Takes
So
a village.
Yep, it's a village. So and locally the clubs, it's thousands of different service and advocacy projects that clubs are doing. So they work in their local communities, but then we also give to the large picture of the international.
I know in some of the worldwide projects, we've worked with clean water. We've worked to make sure that young women have pads and underwear so they can go to school during their period, because in many countries, you're not allowed. You have to stay home. So you're missing a week out of every month from education. Fistula projects, which also is huge over the years. So I wanted to give some direct examples. So any listener said, oh my gosh, that resonates with me, that might be something they would be interested in doing. And locally in Cleveland, We've worked with the Women in Transition program through Tri-C College. So women who get out of prison, women who are displaced for any reason, and they need to go back to work and they need education. We've provided scholarships, and that's something that we do all over the world too. So can you talk a little bit about the scholarship program?
Yes, definitely. We hit women at all ages. And, just so you know, ZONTA is not just women. There are many men involved in ZONTA, and most of the men in the world believe in equality. It really is of the majority. So we do have men also, anyone who believes in that mission of building a better world. But our scholarship programs are just for women and girls. So when they apply, and so we kind of hit women at every age. So young women in public affairs, clubs will submit this to a district, and I can explain that, and then districts to the ZONTA International, and that recognizes a young woman who's volunteering and their leadership skills in their community. And then the Jane M. Klausman Woman in Business is just what it was, a woman in business, studying business or business management. That is for, like I said, a woman in college age. Amelia Earhart Fellowship I talked about is for women in a doctoral program. And then also a lot of clubs like Cleveland and Columbus and other clubs have non-traditional, we call it, scholarships, where young women coming out of high school have numerous opportunities for financial aid and money, scholarships. You go and take care of your family or have an issue, and then you go back to school. You don't have many options. So many of us are giving scholarships and monies to help these women who are going back to educate themselves.
And we do the high school ones. We've done them in Cleveland. But as you pointed out, there's a lot available for someone leaving high school today. There wasn't at one point, but today there is. But the women who have to go back in the workforce, like myself, I had to go back in the workforce, makes it very difficult. So we are focusing, and that is definitely part of our mission. You mentioned men being involved. We have had men in the Cleveland Club as well. But I'm going to jump from this to why I joined ZONTA in the first place, and it has to do with exactly that. I have 2 sons. No girls, wanted a girl, had 2 sons. So it was important to me for my sons to be respectful, to support women, in their future, right? Whether it was their wives, their girlfriends, whatever. And so my sons got involved. So I specifically got involved with ZONTA to be helping other women and girls, but to bring my sons in to learn that lesson as well. And they both were very involved until they went away to college. And we have high school clubs. We have college clubs as well. Where they were at, there was none. They did not start them. That would have been my hope for them to pull that in. But at least they were there. They were supportive. They showed up to every one of our fundraising events. They did audio-visual things. My son was an announcer for a fashion show. We've done a little bit of everything, but having them involved, statistically, if you involve your children, male or female, in what you do for fundraising and what you do to help other people, they will do that in the future. So that was my reason initially for joining ZONTA, but now it's the camaraderie that's still there. I've been through a lot. Many of my listeners know that, and Zontians have always been there to support me. So what's your story, Kimm?
That is so true. And I love the younger people. It's funny, the high school Z clubs and the college Golden Z clubs, 50% are boys, young men. They don't see that line. And that is really the way we want to do it. So right. I actually have a daughter, and a granddaughter now. So I joined, to be honest, I wasn't looking for an organization. I was just coming off being president of another organization that empowers women. And I always have worked on women's issues, sorority and things like that in college. My grandmother was a suffragette and a college graduate from the 19-teens. So she really, my Grandma Kay, and now I'm Grandma Kay. So she really, I always inspired to be like her. But I met a woman at a chamber function, at a networking function, and she couldn't say enough about this ZONTA Club. And coming from being active in my community, I'm like, how have I not
How do
heard
you
of
not
this?
know?
Exactly. And this was 17 years ago. And she said, just come to a meeting with me. Well, I really was impressed by this woman. So went, and oh man, Melinda, I met these ladies, and the first thing is they were very welcoming. But secondly, when they were reporting all that they were doing, all the service projects and advocacy projects, we have changed laws in our state and in the
Right.
world. So I'm like, what? So, but within 2 months, I was initiated, and 2 months after that, I was on the board. So as a director. So
Isn't that what
exactly.
happens? That happened to
Yeah.
me. I met
Yeah.
the person who brought me to ZONTA, introduced me. We were doing other fundraising events together. I did a lot of nonprofit work while I was retired, raising my children.
Yeah.
I probably did 5 or 6 major projects a year for different organizations, and I met this woman who told me about it. And it fit that bill, helping young women, helping other women. Being able to introduce my sons to that was important to me, and it filled that bill, and they were doing amazing things. And so I wanted to be part of that, and I'm still part of that today.
Right. Right. Because you've been around almost, as almost
15
long as me.
years.
Yeah, the average lifespan of a Zonchan, they usually take after they get over like 4 to 5 years. I have to be honest, 5 years in, I still didn't understand everything. And
It's a
they were
lot.
mentored. Yeah, it is. There's a lot. And I love it because I still am learning so much. It's If you've ever been in a dead-end job and you're just watching the clock, that is like the worst kind of day. This is never going to be that. Though it's not a job, it's volunteer, but it will never be that, because I'm always learning. Things are always changing too, but I'm
Right.
always learning so much. And I love the international side. This has just broadened. I've been able to travel around the world now and speak on 3 different continents. I've been and trained. It's just, it's really, we talk about empowering women. We try to, that starts within our clubs though. It
Does.
really does. It starts with our own members. We work and empower each other.
And the nice
And
thing with local clubs is you can hit your local issues. Though we are not a political organization, and I think that's important to throw out there in our world, how politically divided we are. We do work, as you pointed out, to make law changes, but it's not a political organization.
No, we are bipartisan, non-sectarian.
What I love,
Everyone is welcome.
what I'm hearing now is that we all know there's a number of organizations, coaching sessions to empower women, but it's usually to learn to empower yourself. This, you are empowering yourself as you're helping other people. And, as a coach myself, that's what I love about my job, because I can help guide. Okay. And I can see the results. Does it help me grow? Absolutely. So once you get involved and we're taking care of that generation that's coming up, we know we're preparing for a better world.
Right.
Right.
And
And
we're
that's a
also
great way to
helping,
put that.
and we're also helping other organizations. So Cleveland Clubs works with MedWish, which takes open, unused medical supplies and spreads them around the world where countries need those supplies.
Wow.
It was started by a university hospital physician. I was part of that very beginning. I did a couple of fundraisers with them. But we, as a club, now go and pack products. It's one of our service projects, pack it so that it can be sent.
I'm glad
So
you said that. I'm going to check in our area. Thank you. I'm taking notes myself. That's a neat.
It is. It's a wonderful project because we are so wasteful in the United States. We open one pack of sutures, we use one suture, we throw the rest away. We really don't need to do that, but the way our rules are here, we must do it that way. But other countries can use those sutures. So that's one example. If you have, extra wheelchair, you can donate the wheelchair instead of throwing it out, and they'll take that and get it to a country or a place that can to somebody who can use it. So that's just one example of what you can do locally. And that's another thing I love about the clubs is they can take their local issue, they can help other nonprofits, they can help people within their community. We've done projects with women coming out of prison just to give them a bag that has toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, things that you don't even think about. They leave and they're out. That's it. Or we've worked with people who've aged out of the foster care system.
Yeah.
And, you know, you turn 18, you're halfway through school. It's up to the family to decide if they want to keep you. Otherwise, you're out. So you can pick projects in your area. You have a voice in a club. It's a group that works together. And that's what I love about the different clubs. You get new ideas, right, to look for, but you have the ability to help locally.
Yeah, it's so true. The diversity of what clubs are doing is just mind blowing, to be honest with you.
And the
Just in
diversity
our
of the people in the club.
Yeah, exactly. It just our district, the world of ZONTA is divided up into the globe literally is divided up into districts, and then those districts, we're District 5. We're a very old district. Melinda's club is over 100 years old. Our Toledo club's over 100 years old. Our club's almost pushing 95. So we're very old in the organization, and very honored about that. But that's how it's broken up. But you're right, we have a club in our District 5, and it's on the border of Ohio and West Virginia. And they, for years, have done, I think twice a year, they do a clothing sale, kind of like a rummage sale, whatever, and people, you know, get clothing for minimal cost. They now have such a following, and the Zontians have told me, many women have come to them and said, this is the only time that they ever get to get new clothes or go shopping. And a lot of people come up from West Virginia to it and this is their way of replenishing just basic clothes, their closet. You know,
I got a lot of clothes to send down there. We should talk afterwards. I've got bags of it they could have.
Excellent. Middle Ohio Valley would love you.
So take a little drive, load up the van, take it down.
Exactly. Pick me up. We'll have fun.
I'll come stay in Columbus for the day.
Definitely. We do have a lot of fun and fellowship.
We do.
That is another thing. When we are helping others, we tend to have fun doing it. In fact, you had mentioned putting in the medical MedWish, and you put the things back together again.
Right.
Zontians are the best at doing the line and putting things and organizing these, and we laugh.
We do that at every major meeting. We usually have a project where we're putting it together.
Yeah, we are efficient. But we have
women get things done, right?
We do
get things done.
Yeah. Yes. And that's another thing. Our members are very active in the community in other respects. They're not just doing ZONTA. They're very active, and it's amazing. And that we partner with a lot of other organizations, like Melinda said, in our communities.
Well, the nice thing for me has been meeting the variety of women involved from all different walks of life and age groups. And I think that's something that we also need to talk about. A lot of people look for just networking group. This really, I mean, of course we always network. We talk about what we do. That's not our focus. So our age group, people involved can be 20 some years old, especially if they come out of a college club, or they can be 80, 90. We have members that are approaching 90 years old. And they're active, they're out there, they're doing and giving back, and it keeps them vibrant. So, but what do you think our average age is, Kim, for our clubs across at least the U.S.?
Good question. I'm going to say 60s roughly. It seems like that's the age, mid 50s to 70 or something. That's the bracket that's kind of doing a lot of work right now. But like you, in our club, we have this group of 80-year-olds that we 60-somethings are like, we want to be like you when we grow up. They are so, but this one woman who's in her 90s always does registration she hasn't missed a meeting. I don't know when, years, decades probably. So you're right. We really kind of hit the whole gamut, like say younger people. I do find that women kind of in their 40s definitely come to us.
That's
they
when
are
I
at a
started.
It's
my late
me
40s,
too. I think I was 44, I think. Yeah. It really, they're at a point in their life, their children are a little older. They're going to be moving on. They maybe have a little extra money, a little extra coin in the bank, as I say. They may have a little extra time, because let's face it, high schoolers don't want us around. And that's a really, really good time, I feel, a woman in her 40s. And a lot of times they are looking at the bigger picture of what are they going to leave? What kind of legacy?
My children were younger, so they got involved. I was an older mom.
Oh, okay.
So, but I was still, you're right, you're a little more set where you're going to be. And even though I had young children, I wanted them involved. I mean, I involved them in every nonprofit thing I've ever done. even if it was at my house, helping me pack up everything to take.
Yep.
So
my daughter too. My daughter has been to meetings. She was there for her 6th birthday at a meeting, not a ZONTA meeting, another meeting. They all sang happy birthday to her. I gave my report. And then I left and we celebrated her birthday. Yeah. I mean, but she has supported me. She's 32 now and she has supported me. She has done things, for ZONTA, typed things up for us and everything. It's amazing how you're right. Family kind of becomes part of the ZONTA family.
You talk about the aging, and I think it's really important. There are so many women in their 50s and 60s who want to make a difference. They don't know how to do it. They don't want to just join a group and not be heard. They want to join something and be involved in it. And I think the more we talk about that, it's going to grow. Okay. Because there are women, in their 70s who are saying, what do I do with myself? Okay. I really can't afford to go shopping every day and can only clean my house so much. And really, I don't want to babysit my grandkids. I want to do something and leave a mark. And this is a great organization to do that.
Well, and to have that camaraderie too, that support, because you never know. I was president the first time. I've been blessed to be president twice of our club, and once was for our 100th anniversary, which was really cool because we keep all of our records at the History Museum in Cleveland. So I am forever the president for the 100th anniversary. But the first time I was president, I had breast cancer. And this group rallied around me, supported me, did, whatever I needed to do. I did not stop being president because I would never do that. Those of you who know me, I made a commitment, I'm sticking through it, and I did it through my entire treatment. But it wasn't without support. And so having that local support was important. It really, really was.
That is so true. We need ZONTA sometimes as much as ZONTA needs us. There are times in our lives, I will also agree with Melinda that, it's amazing how our club president just had emergency surgery this week, but I was already picked up the ball. What can we do? We're there. We help each other. And you're right. That's probably why the average lifespan of a ZONTan is 30 years. 30 years a member is the average lifespan of a ZONTA now. When they gave that stat to us about a year, I was like, what? But I can, Melinda and I, we're halfway there. I can see us.
Yeah.
We'll still be doing it for 15 years from now.
Kimm and I were talking before, and I said, was there ever a moment where I thought, I need a break. I'm not going to be part of the club. I'm taking a break, which, there are people who do that and then they come back. But I didn't do that. I did back down, and the club's okay with that because, again, we're here to support each other. So I just backed down the amount of committees I was on and all the things that I've done because I needed that time for me, but never left the club, even though it ran through my mind. But I thought, oh, my gosh, I would miss everybody. What would I do? So I stay. Club sizes vary as well. You can have very small clubs that have 20 people and clubs that have 50 people. It just depends on your area and how much is available for women to be involved in. And I do think that all the clubs that have popped up, the networking clubs, the women in business associations, have pulled from our ranks over the years. But I believe that with the way the world is changing and our thoughts are changing about what we want in equality, which one would have thought by now we would have had, but we don't. I think we're going to see a growth in ZONTA because it provides something unique and different. It isn't just about the I, it's about the we.
Melinda, I feel it too. I feel it more now than I did a few years ago. These younger generation, they really do see the bigger picture. You can see how they're already activists, a lot of them. The young girls and boys, young men, I should say, but yeah, I really do see a turn. We also have e-clubs. So if someone lives in an area that doesn't have a club, they can start an e-club and they can have people from all over the place. They still meet monthly. They do it, on good old Zoom, if it's working. No, I'm just kidding you. Yeah, no. And so there's all sorts of ways, and you can go to zonta.org to see if there's a club in your area. But yeah, we're trying to connect as well as we can. And they even do projects. They do fundraisers, like they'll do online auctions, and they will do fun or projects, possibly advocacy project or service project, and it's really interesting how e-clubs work too, and these women get to know each other.
We had started e-clubs right before COVID hit, thank God, because at least we had had some knowledge of how to go and move forward through COVID. It was very challenging for everyone, obviously, but it was a challenging issue for us because we do hands-on projects. But we managed, we made it through even with COVID.
Yeah, and we were using Zoom years before the shutdown. So we transitioned, all the club meetings transitioned to Zoom pretty easily. Not, I shouldn't say all 1,100 plus clubs, but they did pretty well, actually.
Right. I have noticed when I look at other countries, though, that we do tend to have younger women in other countries in the clubs. Do you think that's because there's just less available? Like we have so much available in the United States that they can join these other organizations that Karen talked about, other women's business groups. They don't have that in other countries. What do you think?
No, I've never thought about it, but thank you. Yeah, you're probably right. And you're probably, there are a lot of options in the US, so that they're just getting pulled every which way. So yeah, that probably is it. Yeah, I would say in the US we probably do have a little skewed, older member than there are other countries that you're right. Yeah, their members are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and that's their oldest member. So so yeah.
And I wanted to point that out.
I'm gonna look into that.
It's good. If somebody's listening and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to be, they're all over 50, I don't want to be part of that. That isn't true. I mean, there are younger women involved, and worldwide there's a lot of younger women involved. And we need those people. We need somebody to start to take up the banner, because let's face it, we're not going to do it forever, though you and I are going to be around for at least another 15 years. I want them to take up that banner and move forward, because this is a legacy now, right? So if we can continue to bring people to the table to understand what ZONTA can do, they can see how it fits in their life. And we're not going to take over someone's life. I think that's a fear too. A lot of people want their free time today. And those of us who grew up at a different time didn't know what free time meant. But today it's very important. And the clubs are adapting to that, so that you can pick, if all you want to do is be part of fundraising, then you're part of fundraising. If all you want to do is help bring other people to the table for membership, you can be part of that. So there are many ways you can help, besides just supporting us outright and coming to a fundraiser, which is great. And a lot of people start that way. They come to a fundraiser, they see what we do, they meet the other women, they meet other people, and then they join.
Yeah, so, and there's also individual membership now, which is new. It's called an individual membership, and you're not part of a club, but your dues are less, but you are part of ZONTA International. You literally are we're all under the umbrella of ZONTA International. I personally like being part of a club because, like Melinda, I love that camaraderie. I love the getting together. I love doing stuff. But some people, maybe it's a professional woman in her 30s, and you're right, she just can't go to a bunch of meetings, but she believes in the mission. She can become an individual member. And we also have a thing in a lot of our clubs is called Friends of ZONTA. I know you guys have it in Cleveland too. They don't necessarily want to join, but they support us. Like if we tell them there's a law that needs to be changed, which right now in Ohio there is, about spousal abuse and stuff. So, or if there's a fundraiser, they get invited, and they are so supportive. So I love the Friends of ZONTA, we call them too, because they're, and a lot of our family are Friends of ZONTA. So there's so many ways there's so many people that believe in the mission of building a better world for women and girls, that there's a lot of different categories they can give however best is good for their lifestyle.
Kimm, you mentioned two areas that I would not have thought of as being big in Ohio. Okay. One was trafficking. I guess I'm sort of blind to it. I think it's only happening in New York City and Los Angeles. But obviously it's happening all over. And then spousal abuse. I mean, we have to open our eyes and realize that these things are happening, and we do have a voice. But if Zonta can teach us how to use that voice, whether it be as a friend of Zonta, being part of a club, I think this organization could grow to the point where people will just naturally be drawn to it. And just what I'm hearing today, and my husband's probably going to kill me at the end of the day when I say, hey, I'm getting involved in one more thing. But you're there to help me as well as I'm there to help all of you. And I
Right.
think that's the message women have to hear.
And
Thank
what
you.
I was going to say is we are the best kept secret.
You
Because
are.
we've been around 100 years, but we're still the best kept
And
secret.
someday I hope that saying, we don't have to say that, you know,
Yeah.
someday I'm hoping that we're not the best kept secret.
We're
yeah,
doing what we can.
Yeah, we sure are. We have also an advocacy project, speaking of creating awareness in the community. It's called the 16 Days of Activism. It is in parallel with 2 UN things. It ends the end of November to in December, and we paint the world orange. Basically, the entire country of Germany, buildings, everything is changed orange. Zontians have actually oranged out Niagara Falls. They changed the lights on
Terminal
it
Tower
orange.
did it here.
Terminal Tower in Cleveland, because orange is the color of violence against women, domestic-based violence and gender-based violence. So you're right. We are still working on that. That is one of we do it now every year, 16 days of activism. And so sometimes you'll see people with orange ribbons or whatever. It's many different, we do it many different ways, but it's Say No to Violence Against Women is the ZONTA program. And it's really neat to have thousands of people around the world, those 16 days, focus on that one issue. So you're right. We're still creating awareness, but we're working on it.
Well, so that's a great way to wrap this up because we're almost at the end of our time, because we've decided with Heart Mojo that we are going to do a monthly series covering each area. And it may not always be Kimm. It may be 1 or 2 other Zontians on there. We're hoping to have some international people come on, talk about how it works in their country. But this is the way we're going to create awareness. So this is a commitment I've made, and Karen and I have talked about it, and Kimm is on board for it. So we're going to do a monthly series talking about these different areas, maybe a project, maybe, I think climate change. When I heard this at one of our last meetings, and I've been in this organization, I never gave it a thought of how that would affect women specifically. So, and I think that's going to be one of our summer, because again, with the tornadoes and the weather, things like that, that we want to hit and let people understand why that's an issue. We'll talk about scholarships, we'll talk about the different projects, but I really feel strongly that it's part of my mission to help the challenges out there. That's where Heart Mojo came from, was my life challenges, and Karen picking up on that on Facebook. So now it's time to give back this way.
Absolutely.
So for this, if you're watching this today, keep tuned in. We'll make sure in the show notes that we put a way to reach out to me, a way to reach out to Kimm, because I don't know where you're listening from, and ZI themselves. So any closing comments, Kimm?
We have a lot of international people listening to the podcast. And so you don't have to be living in Ohio.
Nope.
You don't have to be living in the United States. And if there's a subject that you think that Zonta should be looking at,
send it to us.
Share it with us. Like I said, before today's podcast, I wouldn't have thought about those things happening around me. And now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, what can I do to help at least one person?
And we'd like to, I think, maybe we've had speakers. Every meeting has a speaker, an educational speaker. So we can always bring some of those people to the table. And I also would like to hear from some of our scholarship winners to see how that's changed their life. Because they can be anywhere in the world. And I think the most effective way for you to understand what we do is to hear from the people who benefited.
Right. That is so true. And you're right. We are so connected, and you're right, worldwide, that I'm so thrilled that you guys have opened the door up for this. I've been wanting this for years, so I'm so excited. And thank you so much for giving the ZONTA 101, to everyone. And I'm excited about, different programs that you guys are going to do to create education, create awareness about ZONTA. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Any closing words for us? Any parting words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. Oh no, she's putting the pressure on me.
That's my job.
Just, you know what? It's a big world. There's a lot of work to be done, but many hands make light work. So we all help each other, and we go out and we help others. And, if everyone just did a couple hours a month of community service, just think what an amazing world this would be.
One person can make a difference.
Totally.
Well, thank you, Kim. I appreciate you being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and tune in. There'll be more ZONTA for you.
Absolutely. Have a great day,
Thanks,
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.